Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, welcome to my channel. So for today's video, we'll be working on this little rose in watercolors for the background and watercolor pencils for the rose. Of course, you can use watercolors for the whole thing or colored pencils or watercolor pencils for the whole thing. It just might take a different amount of time and your results might be slightly different. But this is part one today, and we'll be working on the background. So make sure you subscribe and come back on Wednesday for part two and Friday for part three, because this was a little bit of a longer video, so I did decide to break it up again. But I hope you guys enjoy this, and let's just get right into the video. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So for today's video, I thought we would do this really cute rose. I'm going to do the background with my watercolors, and then I'm going to do the rose itself with my watercolor pencils. I have the colors ready here to go for my watercolor pencils. So if you wanted to do the whole thing with your traditional watercolors, you can certainly do that. You can color match here. Or if you want to go ahead and use your watercolor pencils, you can do that as well. All the items that I'll be using today will be listed down in the description, so you can check that out. But I'm going to start mixing up my colors for the background right now. So this reference photo I got from either Pixabay or Unsplash. I will try to link that down in the description below, so you have it as well. But the background is a nice blurry sort of green background, so I want to keep that in this picture. But because the flower itself is sort of some really nice yellow, red, and orange tones, I want some of my green in the background to lean a little bit blue. So I'm going to sort of use a little bit of my Viridian blue. So we'll start getting this ready now. So I'm going to take my Viridian blue here. And I'm just going to mix some of this up because the blue and the green will complement the oranges too. So I want to have some of this ready to go. And we're going to wet our background and do some wet and wet. So I don't want to have too much water on my palette with the color in it. I'm sort of laying the colors down so you can see what colors I'm using, and you'll be able to match them a little bit easier. And then if we don't have enough color there, we can just go back in to the pans after. Then I'm going to take some of just the hooker's green. And I'm going to make a spot for this because this is a really nice sort of earthy green. And this will be one of our main colors, so I do want to make sure I have, enough of this. So I'm just taking some water and putting it on there. So I will have enough ready to go. And then I'm going to take some more of this hooker's green, but I'm going to make it a little bit darker. So I'm going to add maybe a hint of sepia in here and maybe some neutral tint or some black as well. So, and we'll go in with just a hint of sepia to really sort of brown it up, because around the edges there is more of like a browny dark green. So I'm going to make that. And I'm just going to get a little bit more of the hooker's green deep, so you can sort of see what kind of color I'm going for there. And then I may add in, a hint of sap green in there as well, maybe a little closer to the flower, but we can just go into the pan with that. I am going to take a little bit of my phthalo blue and just add that in to really even more blue this Viridian green up. I just want it just a hint more blue than that, just for a little bit of pop of contrast. Okay. So I'm liking where those colors are starting, so that's going to be sort of our base, and we'll work from that. But now I'm just going to wet the background. So I'm just taking my size 12 silver black velvet, and I'm just going to go along and wet all of the background. Now, if you want to do all of this with your watercolor pencils, you can certainly do that. You'll just, use the similar colors with your watercolor pencils in the background. Or you can do this whole thing in just colored pencils. You can match if you're using the polychromos. They're the exact same colors as the Faber-Castell Albert Durr watercolor pencils. So that's really nice and easy to match that way. Or if you want to leave the background out completely and just jump in for the flower, you can skip ahead and certainly do that, or you can even watch to see how I'm going to do the flower. And I'm going to make sure I'm getting up as close as I can to these petals. Now, if you want to make this easier for yourself, you could also go in and mask just around the petals with some masking fluid. You could certainly do that. But if I get some a little over top of the petals, that's fine. I'm not too worried about that. There. And so I'm looking for a nice shiny paper. I don't want there to be puddles of water anywhere, but I want it to be nice and shiny. And what I'll do too is just take like a Kleenex or paper towel, and I'll just get any water that might be sitting on the outside where the tape is, because you don't want that to get pulled into your piece. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with how that is looking there. And I'm going to start going in and dropping our colors in. So I'm going to start with just our Hooker's Green Deep. So this is our Hooker's Green Deep. And I'm just going to start dropping it in some places where I want it. And because we added water to the background, our paint's going to flow and mix really nicely. Okay. So I'm going to go in with that Viridian blue mixture that we made. And I'm going to drop this in some of the places. Okay, and I'm going to start going in with our darker mixture and just taking this along the outside. And with this, you do want to work fairly quickly, kind of. Once we get a little layer of color on there, it's a little easier to start going in and adding a little bit more color. So I'm going to take some of that Hooker's Green again and just start to get some color down, because this paper is drying fairly quickly. Now this is 100% cotton, but I do notice that it's starting to dry fairly quickly, so that's all right. I just want to get this layer covered, and then now I can go in and drop some more color in. So I'm gonna go back in with some sepia and some lamp black and just sort of make a bit of a darker mixture there, and then add some of our Hooker's green to that. And I'm gonna make sure I have most of the water out, and I'm gonna start putting this in. And if you notice, there's places where it's starting to puddle up, and I want a little darker there. I'm just going to take that out and put the darker colors there. And I'm just dropping it in wherever I want that really dark color. Okay. So now I'm going to go back in with that Hooker's Green Deep, just that color. And I'm going to start dropping this in to sort of intensify it a little bit more and to help blend it. And because we've got a little layer of color and water on, if you're fairly quick about this, you're not going to get any blooms. I'm just going to pick up a little bit there. But if you start to let the paper dry too much and then you add a really wet mixture, you'll start to get those blooms where the paint will just sort of separate and wash back on itself. And if you're going for that, that's fine. That's completely fine. That's a great look. But if you want your colors to be a little more seamless, transition a little better, then you're going to want to try to avoid that. So that's why I'm just sort of splashing the paint here and there. Areas like the blue there and there where it's starting to dry a little bit, I'm going to sort of, start leaving those areas alone. I'm also going to drop a little bit of sap green up in here. So sap green's sort of like a nice yellowy green. And I'm gonna transition it up here. Because I see it around here. And then I also see a bit over here on this side, so I'm just going to start dropping that in as well to sort of get some brightness in there. And then down here too. And this is the fun part where you can just, you know, keep dropping colors in, you know, seeing how you like it, adjusting from there. I'm going to go back in with that Viridian hue and just add a bit more in a couple of places. Down here again, I want to intensify here. And down here, that's a little, it's getting a little too blue for me down there, so I'm just going to drop that in. Smooth it out. And then sort of to balance it, I'll just have a little bit going here. Okay. And again, with our Hooker's green, and I'm just going to drop that in a couple of places. Now it's starting to puddle right here, so I'm just going to lift some of that out. I had a little too much water, and I'll just go back in. And just drop a little bit more in. Okay. And a bit up here. And you can do as much or as little as this as you want. Okay. Now I'm going to mix up just a bit more of that really, really dark green. And we're going to just add that around the edges again. And then I think we'll just leave this to dry and see what we get. So as you're doing this, the main thing that you really want to watch for, and the reason why a lot of people will get blooms, if you're trying to avoid that, is you want to use less and less water in your mixture of paint. So you can see how this is, you know, I'm going, you know, almost into the pans and just having enough so it just will take the color off my brush a bit. So I'm not really making the paint as runny as it was at the beginning. So you want to make sure you're doing less and less water, and then that's really going to help so you don't get those blooms as the paint's drying. And you do want to work, you know, fairly quickly. But there, I think I like that. So I think I will leave this like this. We've got some nice color, and at this point you could take the hairdryer and blow dry this, but if I really want the paint to move around and blend really well, I find it's just best to let it air dry. So it could take half hour, an hour, just depends how much water you have left on your piece. So when this is dry, I will come back and we will start using our pencils for the rose. I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial, and I hope to see you in the next video. And as always, thank you so much for watching.